Thank you. So we're going to talk about, my topic really is about how do we rethink blockchain to empower the next generation. As people in tech, we always start with the user in mind. As Charlie said, there are two camps, right? There are camps that believe that blockchain is just pure hype, and there are camps that believe that blockchain really is the future of the next internet. I fall into the second camp. And so as the future of the internet, it only makes sense that we begin to think about ways to create the internet for the future users of the internet, which is the next generation. As people in technology, we always start with, when you think about design thinking, you start with the user in mind. Because fundamentally, the user is the one who's going to influence the successful outcome of your product. If there's zero user adoption, then no matter how fantastic the technology or the architecture behind it, no one is just going to use it. And in a lot of sense, that's how we should begin to think about blockchain when we're thinking about, the next generation of users. In the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, we're going to have a new generation coming up, interacting with these tools, these systems, this infrastructure that we have created. And what do these people really value? What are the needs of these users? Have we considered that as we're creating this blockchain infrastructure? And how is this really even important in blockchain? So I think, to address that question, let's just go back to the beginning. We know the history. A lot of us know the history. In 9th of November 2008, a mysterious paper appeared by Satoshi Nakamoto. No one who knows who he, she, they are. For the sake of bias, I'll say it's a she. And so she released this white paper that was talking about a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. Fundamentally, what Satoshi was trying to address here is how do you create value within a network whereby you're able to eliminate dependence on one single party as the sole governor or as the sole governing authority within the network. Now, it will interest you and it will delight you to know that I'm not necessarily a decentralization fanatic. I believe definitely in regulation and in regulatory of blockchain solutions, and especially when it comes to cryptocurrency and financial instruments. I think that's something that has to be had. However, I think one of the key things here is, what was the intent and why was this paper released? So we know the causation, right? This is the famous, or should I say infamous Genesis block. And somewhere in here, the mystery and the question of why was this paper released is being kind of like addressed. On the 3rd of January 2009, Chancellor on brink of second bailout for banks. And so fundamentally, the issue Satoshi was trying to, or at least what we think she was trying to address is the fact that institutions, at that time, financial institutions, this was, of course, in the middle of the recession. And at this time, financial institutions had amassed a significant amount of value. But then what happens when, such financial institutions or such corporations or such entities that have amassed this amount of value, what happens when they fail? It puts the rest of the community, so to speak, at risk. And so when you think about this, the real idea here was let's try and create decentralization, one for the sake of transparency, so that everybody can be almost an equal participant in this network, and so also for the sake of providing a trusted, trustless network. Now, a trusted, trustless network in the sense that you don't need to depend on, again, a single entity to govern this network, but you could almost use mathematical algorithms to begin to facilitate transactions transparently within the network. And so the effect, as we know, went rapid, right? No one really took notice of the Bitcoin blockchain when it initially started. But as more and more transactions started happening on this network, and as the value of the Bitcoin started going significantly up through the roof, people started paying attention. And this became almost like a global, started having a global reach, actually. And when you think about it, subsequent people came forward. Example, Vitalik Buterin, who's the creator of the Ethereum blockchain. And Vitilake's proposition was the introduction of smart contracts. But then the value there was really, you have this network and you have the infrastructure and you have this systems all connected to each other. How do we create the next value on top of that, right? How do we create systems whereby people can begin to execute almost business contracts or business logic on top of this? And that was the evolution of the Ethereum network as we know it today. And so when you talk about that, how is this relevant then? And what are the opportunities? And why is this relevant in any way for the next generation? Well, again, going back to the question of what do the next generation want? When you speak to users, you talk to Generation Z or Generation We, as they are often called. There are a number of things that come to mind. One is they believe in equity. And equity not in the sense as we know it in the businesses, but equity as regards to they believe in everyone having an equal share, or at least having the opportunity to have an equal share in the participation as part of a community. So, social justice, as an example, is one of the key things that is big on their minds. Equity, having an equal playing field, having the opportunity so that in the future, they think about their jobs and their jobs may be at risk. And how do they begin to create value together considerably within a team, a participatory team as a community? So what's going on right now? Coming back to the fundamental proposition of blockchain, really the Web 3.0 is the internet of value. That's how we define this. And the reason is this: it allows people to come together, to collaborate, to share content visibly, transparently, to share incentives as part of this community that they have created together, using automation, using smart contracts as part of that system. But on top of that as well, it also opens us opportunities for people to begin to think about new business models and where they can also begin to change their industry for good. This is an example of a project that has gone live right now, a platform called Comgo. And Comgo really, the value, this is one of many, okay? In the trade finance industry in particular, a lot of work and a lot of dedication and a lot of effort has gone into how to transform the industry for the future, to make it much more sustainable, to make it much more transparent, to make it much more efficient in the future. Congo is one of those networks and one of those platforms that have been created. It is a consortium of sorts of multiple parties, big players in the industry that have come together to say, you know what, if we want to really provide value within our industry, we need to be able to let go of some certain level of authority, of autonomy that we have to contribute within this network, to become participants in this network for greater transparency, to make sure that our industry continues to thrive and excel into the future. And so what's happening now? What's happening in Congo is that end-to-end across the value chain, right from the very start to the end, you almost begin to see people who are part of this value chain, right from the initial, from the people who are the letters of credit, the issuing letters of credit, the suppliers through to the shippers, coming together, and to the banks and the financiers coming together to say, let's create visibility of how we trade on an international, international and a global basis. This is just one of many. In the UK, the real estate industry is a massive potential. It's a £7 trillion industry. And a lot of effort has gone into how do we optimize the real estate industry. From that perspective, people have done a number of things, and a lot of the change, so to speak, or the prop tech, as we call it. I work a lot in the real estate industry with players in the real estate industry. A lot of the prop tech has kind of like settled on the application level. However, the fundamental value, so to speak, that blockchain can bring into this industry is, if you think about it across the value chain, right from the aspect of digitizing land titles or property titles and having that registered on a blockchain, moving that through to enabling easy access to financing from from financiers for the developers, through to actually enabling various participatory models of P2P financing for people. You have crowdfunding now as a major thing in the real estate industry. And you can almost take that at one level up to create token systems and what we call tokenization of assets on the blockchain of this property. What you begin to see is that right from the very start of the value chain through to the very end, where people actually begin to live in these properties, there's a whole seamless transparency that can be created. Again, going back to why is this important? This is important because in the end, the future of the internet is going to be used by the future generation. If we're building the systems, if we're building these tools, if it's important to them, then it needs to be important to us. The reason why blockchain has become a buzzword of sorts, or don't bring it near me, is because we almost fell into the trap, into the greed that's happened earlier on that actually helped to cause the financial crisis. With the whole ICO bubble that happened, people found blockchain technology almost as a land grab mechanism. I want to invest in this ICO, I want to launch this ICO because I hear that there's money there. I want to create blockchain projects just for the sake of creating blockchain projects. However, my proposition today is we need to rethink that. We really need to rethink the fundamental value, almost going back to the roots of why the solution was created in the first place. This is an infrastructure, these are networks, these are protocols, these are applications that are fundamentally changing the way people interact in terms of the internet, in terms of the value that is created, not just how value is accrued, but how value is also distributed equitably amongst all participants. And so my prediction is that Web 3.0 is certainly the internet of value, but it's not just the internet of value. It's the internet of value created and distributed. And that's what the next generation want. And we should start thinking about that for industries as well, and how we can help to transform our industries with this next generation technology.